my name is B.Traits, and at the end of last year, I did a documentary called How Safe Are My Drugs? And it was an investigation into how safe these illegal and legal substances are, how much knowledge and awareness is available around these substances, and how strong their presence is in the clubbing and music world. Now, as a DJ and producer, I was instinctively drawn to the subject, and I think a lot of promoters, a lot of agents, a lot of people in the industry are. It's a subject that is talked about all the time, but no action is really being done. And that's basically why we are here today. The purpose of this discussion is to share information and experiences and to just encourage the dialogue. So in the questions section, I'd really love for you guys to get involved and literally ask anything you can. These guys are experts, and they are doing incredible, incredible work. So this panel of individuals is a powerhouse, basically, of change and how we're going to change this whole situation. I would really like to ask Fiona about sort of the developments, what's been going on with the loop recently. And I mean, that stuff is incredibly exciting, some of the things that you were mentioning to me earlier.
Okay, so
I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah. So what we've been doing in the UK, I've described as halfway house testing, that we've been getting substances from everywhere on site that we can and giving the information back as wide as we can on site. But what we've not been doing is what happens in Europe, in places in Europe, including in Spain, Switzerland, Austria, and until recently in the Netherlands, which is front of house testing, where individuals can go, take their substances, get the results, and then make a decision for themselves what they want to do with the substance afterwards.
Has that ever been done in the UK before?
That's never been done in the UK.
Sweet. Yeah, seriously.
A lot of the problems that we face in terms of drug-related harms are born of prohibition. They're born of the war on drugs. A lot of these, the challenges we face with MPS, the MPS phenomenon is driven by the war on drugs. And a perfect example of that is the synthetic cannabinoid drugs. Nobody in the Netherlands, or very few people in the Netherlands, are using synthetic cannabinoid drugs for the obvious reason that they can just get cannabis. There is no market for it because you can just get cannabis, and cannabis is generally preferred by users, and it's safer. So the prohibition on cannabis has created the market for synthetic cannabinoids in the same way that the prohibition on ecstasy, cocaine, and amphetamines broadly has created first BZP and then mephedrone and then all the other ones that have come after in this sort of successive incremental series of bans that have been all proved equally futile and often make the situation worse, generally do make the situation worse. So again, whilst we have to deal with the symptoms of these problems on a harm reduction sort of day-to-day basis, we also need to look at what's driving them. And what's driving them is this idiotic focus of policy and law that is rooted in punitive criminalization and a policing response to what is clearly a public health challenge.
And what's even more poignant about what you say, because I completely agree, is that if we were in America, we couldn't even have this conversation because we would be pilloried by the media and we would be demonized for endorsing and supporting drug use just by talking about it. And the challenge that's presented in North America to the promoters and the festivals under the Rave Act is that the more you educate, the more you attempt to save lives by having brochures and leaflets and anything else in the event, if something horrible was to happen, then the promoter would face a class action because they were endorsing drug use by attempting to educate consumers on how to consume safely, which is just you know,
completely backwards.
It's completely backwards, right? So whereas in Europe, it would be the other way around entirely. So the challenges that we face on a global level are enormous because in the US, there's one strategy. And the strategy is get the facts right and then go on a legislative environment. If you go to Asia, it's even more blunt. I mean, we were at IMS Asia. It was a fantastic event in December. And a number of kind of the local business heads stood up and spoke on stage. And the closing comment was, if kids die at our festivals, you won't have a scene. Bang. Because all of the governments will just close the scene down. So, you know, it's an incredibly delicate issue. and the missing thing is facts. And I think the great thing about the alignment that's now starting to happen is that we're going to get facts up.
Definitely. How difficult is it, like, with the AFEM? What kind of things can we put in place? Like, how can anyone help, basically?
Yeah, well, we had a board meeting yesterday, and when we've begun the process of talking how to create this campaign, and it's going to be difficult, dangerous, delicate, and it'll be a long-term campaign, and it's going to need to move in a number of different places. We're going to need artists in place to stand up and take responsibility for supporting things like drug testing at festivals, and I think that's a very powerful thing to support, because
Definitely.
We often, I think, if you look at mainstream press, they look at things like drug testing kits and say, well, this is all about finding the good drugs, right? And my answer is really quite simple. It's not pro-drugs, it's anti-death. We're in a place now where substances kill. It's not like 20 years ago where a bad pill was just crap. We're now in a place where a bad pill kills. And that's just not right. So what we will be doing is we'll be looking at, first off, creating an evidence-based approach that says it's not an electronic music problem, it's a society problem.
I've heard that basically if someone takes their drugs to this facility, gets them tested, and they find out that it's full of PMA and it's full of just PMMA or all kinds of garbage, they actually are less likely to take that drug. Like, does that happen? Have you seen that? I would just...
Generally, there's some research that's been done in North America that has shown that yes, people do want to throw their drugs away if they don't like what's in them, if they're not happy with the results, but also, interestingly, they want a facility to be able to safely dispose of them. People don't just want to abandon them on site. So they want the test facility, they want the disposal facility, and they want the information as well about what the specific substances are. Some people obviously will carry on and take the drugs, and one of the things with drug testing is we can't claim that it will stop drug use, and we can't claim it will stop drug-related deaths, but the idea is that it reduces drug-related harm. The sorts of things that it has reduced in other studies looking at this is that it tends to mean that people who've never tried drugs are less likely to try them, because actually when they hear about what's in drugs, it puts them off trying them in the first place. So you have a reduction in people who experiment on site for the first time.
One of the things that comes out of that, from what both of you are saying, and from your experiences, no doubt, as well, is that these battles are going to have to be fought one jurisdiction at a time, because the political, cultural, and bureaucratic environment is very different from one country to another, and even within the UK, from one police authority to another. But one of the things that Transform's working with Fiona and the Loop on, and various public health people and legal experts and others, is to try and establish a working framework of legal guidelines and on how to do drug testing at events, so that people can feel confident that they're not going to be putting themselves in a risk of prosecution by doing that. And it seems that the key to that is to secure the support of both the local police authorities and the local public health authorities. And once you've got that, those two groups on side, and this is going to be in any jurisdiction, there isn't really anyone else to come and shut you down or arrest you. I mean, they are the people who hold the keys. They hold the power. And if you can get the industry people and the organisers on side as well, and get those three groups of people, the event organisers, the public health authorities, and the police authorities, sitting down together to come to some kind of agreement. And if you've also got the expert input of people like Transform and Fiona and the work they're doing, feeding into and supporting that, it does actually start to become practical. And when these things are then demonstrated to be workable and effective, then you can start to have proof of concept and start rolling them out, not just in one location, but multiple locations, and then nationally. And hopefully, then you build up your evidence base, and it starts to become kind of bulletproof from the awful conservative forces in politics, who are very opposed to these kind of things on idiotic, ideological grounds, and who are driven more by tabloid hysteria than pragmatic public health thinking. So it is doable, but it is hard work. But I think it's just really important that you all know that there are sources of support and expertise, whether it's Transform, Whether it's the Drug Policy Alliance in the US, whether it's Dance Safe or Dance Energy here in Spain, or Fiona's organisation, The Loop, there are people who are willing to provide that technical expertise and support in moving this agenda forward. So it is possible, and we are here, but we all do need to be working together, and you all need to be getting behind it.
I want to give an example that will drive your point home in a way. The company I work for makes about 40 out of the known 250 synthetic cannabinoids in the market. We sell them all over the world, except in Holland. And we ask, the potential Dutch customers that buy other things from us, why aren't you buying this? It's, just like cannabis. And they say, well, yeah, maybe, but cannabis, we know, is just like cannabis.
Identical.
Yeah, so they, and we try to tempt them with all kinds of would-be advantage. Oh, you can put this in an electric cigarette and then there's no tar. And we always, but the answer we come back to is always, better the devil you know.
There was an event, I think it's Shambhala in Canada, where the police agreed to neither describe the drug testing tent as legal or illegal, they just agreed to walk by.
That's my hometown.
There you go. And out of this, I think it's a 15,000 capacity event, and
Yeah.
2,000 people went to the drug testing tent, and 200 people walked out of that tent leaving the drugs in the bin because they bore no resemblance to what they thought they were buying and were in fact extremely harmful. And that was without any promotion, without pushing the profile of it at all. And actually each individual engagement and sit down with the people that threw those drugs in the bin is a transformational event, because they will go and tell their friends and say, you know what, this is serious, this is life-threatening, this is life-changing. And so I just think, I think it's really poignant describing it as better the devil you know, because I'm not sure we know who the devil is anymore.
We can't ignore the fact that people are going to use illicit substances in these venues, at these events, and just shutting them down is not going to fix anything. There will be new events, there'll be new clubs opening up. It is always going to happen. We literally have to make a change somewhere else.
Yeah, and there are real problems emerging, like what's going on at Fabric at the moment. I mean, they're trying to get drug dogs, or are they getting drug dogs in the? I mean, say something about that.
I probably won't say anything about that actually at the moment.
I know that Fabric obviously
yeah.
faces, it's difficult. And when you do that, when you put dogs on the door, when you crack down on security, then you get everyone in the queue trying to get into the club. They do their drugs all in the queue, and that's when problems seriously happen. Like, that's when we see so many overdoses and things get completely out of hand.
So we're going to be doing some work looking at what the evidence is around drug dogs. One of the things to bear in mind is that various police forces in the UK don't use drug dogs anymore themselves because they don't think they're effective enough. So I think we need to be looking, as Mark said, at the evidence really. What is the evidence that these things work? And if they don't work, or if they cause more problems than they solve, then we really need to be thinking twice about why we're spending so much money on them.
Now, our view would be that there should be no punitive sanctions at all for personal possession use. But nonetheless, moving from criminal sanctions to civil sanctions is still a positive step, in that you remove the threat of a criminal record and the stigma and marginalisation and personal impact on personal life chances that can bring. Now, where they've done that, most notably in Portugal, I think, they didn't just change the law, they actually reoriented their policy much more broadly away from a punitive criminal justice approach towards one that was rooted in public health. And they saved a lot of money on enforcement, and some of that was then redirected into treatment and harm reduction. And the result has been a fairly dramatic drop in injecting heroin use. It's been a drop in the prison population. There's been a dramatic drop in drug deaths. There's been a dramatic drop in drug-related HIV transmissions. And interestingly, there's also been a significant drop in school-age drug use. So two of the key populations that we're worried about, hardcore drug injectors and school-age drug use, actually went down after the decriminalisation. And it wasn't just because they changed the law, it was because they reoriented away from punishment towards health.
I just want to ask, when do we actually know everything there is to know about a drug? When we're finished making it? When 2 people have taken it? Or 2,000? Or 20,000? Or 2 million? When? Okay, I'm not going to answer the question.
I don't think that
It's
we'll
just food
ever
for
know,
thought.
but I think that the testing will definitely have a massive hand in that, because everything is always going to evolve. I mean, you're a scientist yourself, so it's constantly changing formula.
Just about when we've got a handle on it, someone will ban it.
Yeah.
And that's what usually. No, but that's what happened with methadone, right? They've been around for about 2 years. People, the treatment services and the professionals and the people involved in the scene had kind of got a handle on what the risk profile of it was, and it was banned. And the next 25.
Even if it's not banned, the question was posed for a drug taken in isolation. Then what about interactions with alcohol and cigarettes and other drugs and pharmaceutical pills? And it never ends.
It does never end, but
yeah.
there needs to be constant research on it and constant sort of support.
As responsible policymakers and advocates, we also have to deal pragmatically with reality, and reality is that throughout humanity, people have always sought out altered states and ways to change their consciousness, and lots of people do use drugs. So yes, let's encourage alternatives, but in the meantime, we also need to deal with the reality, which is that lots and lots of people use drugs, and we need to keep them safe.
All right, thank you very much, guys.